The triple murder of the Essex Boys gangsters in 1995 is one of the most infamous executions in British history. As the two men convicted of carrying out the savage shootings in Rettendon, Essex, continue to protest their innocence, we explore why the story has gained such notoriety. Tony Tucker, 38, Pat Tate, 36, and Craig Rolfe died after they were lured to a country lane in Rettendon, rural Essex. The three men, who were sat inside a Range Rover, were shot in the head on December 7, 1995. They were members of the so-called Essex Boys gang involved in trafficking large shipments of Class A drugs. Tucker was also known for providing security for nightclubs across Essex and had been a security guard for former super middleweight boxing champion Nigel Benn. Farmer Peter Theobald and his friend Ken Jiggins found the Range Rover and suspected the occupants were poachers. However, the three occupants had been callously gunned down with a pump-action shotgun after they were ambushed. All three had been blasted at close range in the face and were lying blood-covered in the vehicle. Detective Superintendent Ian Dibley led the murder squad, and the early theory was that the three men had died as a result of gangland reprisal. The Range Rover was metallic blue with an F-plate registration, but police had been unable to trace the owner in the early stages. Detective Superintendent Dibley said at the time, "This is not an ordinary murder. It looks as if they were enticed down there. As far as murders go, you don't get any more serious than this." When local farmers Peter Theobald and Ken Jiggins came across the Range Rover, they thought the men inside looked so peaceful that they must have been asleep. During the investigation, it was suggested the murders may have been a revenge attack in light of the drugs death of Leah Betts in Basildon a few weeks earlier. It was believed Tucker ultimately supplied the ecstasy tablet that killed the 18-year-old as she celebrated her birthday in Raquel's nightclub. It was more than 2 years after the killings when Jack Whomes and Michael Steele were convicted of murder. Labeled as executioners, the two men were found guilty of blasting the three drug dealers to death in their Range Rover following a trial at the Old Bailey. Whomes, 36, and Steele, 55, received 3 life sentences with a minimum of 15 years. Addressing the two men, Mr. Justice Hidden said, "There is little that can be said usefully to either of you at this stage. You two men were responsible, in my view, for taking away their lives in a violent and summary way. You lured them to a quiet farm track and summarily executed them." At that point, both men interrupted the judge, saying, "No way." Mr. Justice Hidden added, "They have crossed your path and you showed them no mercy." The fact that they were criminals involved in drugs meant they were subject to criminal law, but not sadly to their lives being ended in this way. There were about these killings a hard and ruthless edge that can only have staggered the non-criminal mind. The trial lasted 4.5 months, and the jury deliberated for 4.5 days. It was also reported that the whole investigation and court proceedings were believed to have cost well over £1 million. In 2023, it was reported that footprints of the suspected Essex Boys gunmen had been identified, casting further doubt over the convictions of Whomes and Steele. Ex-Met detective David McKelvey has spotted Reebok trainer footprints in the snow where the shooter would have stood. Mr. McKelvey says the evidence, caught in police crime scene photographs, was previously missed, and claims it supports the account of an East End crook who told police he was the getaway driver. Billy Jasper said the killer wore Reebok trainers. The Criminal Cases Review Commission is currently examining the 1995 case for a third time after retired Met Detective McKelvey handed them a report compiled by his investigation firm, TMI. Mr. McKelvey, who played a small part in the original probe, said, "We approached this believing Steele and Whomes were highly likely guilty. After 3 years examining the facts, we now believe there was a serious miscarriage of justice. Last week it emerged Steele would be freed from prison at the age of 82, despite a last-ditch bid by ministers to keep him behind bars. Whomes was released in 2021. The murders gained international attention and prompted several books, TV series, and films. The killings were immortalized in the 2000 film Essex Boys, which starred Sean Bean and coined the name. Also inspired by the murders was the crime and gangster film franchise Rise of the Foot Soldier, which has had 6 installations since 2007. A Sky Documentaries series in 2023 interviewed detectives involved with the 1995 case who were critical of the police investigation. Former Met Police Detective David McKelvey claimed credible lines of investigation were not followed and that the assassination was related to an armed robbery, not drug dealing. Essex police previously said the case was exhaustively examined and there was no fresh evidence to dispute the original verdicts. In 2023, it was claimed a car collector was selling what he claims is the Range Rover from the 1995 Rettendon murders for £100,000. Jake Hurst claimed the 1988 3.5-liter motor was the real deal, but he would only let it go for a hefty price.